because, like I said, it goes back to I never wanted to do this. Like, let's be clear. Seeing it from this perspective right now and how God orchestrated it. Hello, I'm Dana. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I am back for another life update. Just kind of wanted to come on and chat what it's been like since I surrendered and put my book out, 7 Years to Surrender. It's been how many months? June? No, June. November, December, January, February, March, April. 6 months. It's been 6 months since I published my book, 7 Years to Surrender, and what it's been like since I published my book, more surrender and more surrender. And I mean, I say that jokingly, but it has been more surrender. And I knew it wasn't going to be, like, of course, easy, because one thing I have realized is surrender is a daily walk. So just wanted to just chat about some things that have been going on. And this video may be all over the place, but yeah, let's just jump into it. So 7 Years to Surrender, my journey to faith. I guess just to give the backstory of how I got here, and that's a long story to begin with, but just to be in this place now and to look back at my journey and how I got here is amazing. So, first of all, just a summary of who I am. My name is Dana, and I am 52 years old. I'm married to my husband, Timothy. I have 3 stepkids. I live in Michigan. I was born and raised in Michigan, but I did live in Cincinnati, Ohio for 8 years, from 2008 to 2015. Tim and I go way back. We dated when we were teenagers, and then we went our separate ways. And then we reconnected over 24 years later, right in the middle of my breast cancer journey. That year, 2015, was a shifting, and I could tell it was a shifting even from day one of that year, literally day one. But that year, I just had this feeling, and I don't even know how to explain it. I was watching a YouTube video, and it was from the Oprah show, Louise Hay, because I had gotten into listening to Louise Hay and Deepak Chopra. And so I was watching the video, and I don't know what the video was, but it must have been something like choosing your one or something, like your person. And so I watched the video, and Louise Hay said something like, write down all of the attributes that you want your person to have. And so I made a list on my computer. And after I made the list, I don't know who I envisioned when I was thinking about these qualities. If I was thinking about my brother, I'm not sure. But anyways, I made the list, and I say that because my husband now is so much like my youngest brother. I call him Stone. When I looked back at it, I was like, was I thinking about my brother when I wrote out all of these qualities? But anyways, I wrote the list and I put it away. I didn't look at it and I didn't check back at it. I just continued to live my life. And 2 to 3 months later is when I got the diagnosis of breast cancer. And of course, that shifted my life. That was the shift. I was immediately thrown into this journey of surrender. So I went on the breast cancer journey, and I had to take chemo for I don't know how many rounds of chemo I went through. It's all a blur now. And right after chemo, I had to have surgery. I had to have a lumpectomy. And that was in October of 2015. And before I went into surgery is when Tim's sister reached out to me. Like I said, we had dated when we were teenagers, and I had kept in contact with his sister over the years. We would like touch base every 2 to 3 years or so. It was really random and just kind of catch up. And so when she called me during my chemo treatments, I think it was in the beginning of when I started taking chemo. She called me. She didn't leave a message. I didn't know if she had just butt dialed me or if she had heard that I was sick. And so I called her back one day when I was having my treatments. And I remember sitting in the chemo chair talking to her, and it never came up that I was sick. So we just caught up, touched base like our usual. And so a couple months after that, she reached back out to me. She texted me and asked if it would be okay if she gave Tim my number. And I immediately was just like thinking like, I don't know if I want to talk to him after all of these years, knowing that I wasn't the same church girl that I was when we were dating. And if I wanted to even open myself up to the questions that he might have had. Like I didn't know if he would judge me. Like it was just this whole thing going on in my head. I just didn't know if I wanted to deal with that. Just going through everything else I was going through. And so I did let her give him my number, and he called me the same day. And I didn't answer because I still wasn't ready. And a couple days later, I did call him back and we talked. It's like we just picked back up where we had left off. And in that conversation, I did let him know that I was going through breast cancer, and he was shook. And so we continued to just talk. Like I didn't have any expectations about, what this reconnection was about. I was just like, okay, I'll just talk to him. As we continued to talk, even from the first conversation, I realized, okay, he's not only like I was concerned that I wasn't the same Dana, but he wasn't the same Tim. And I realized that because we had both read Conversations with God, and that's a book that's more metaphysical. We continued to talk over the next few months. Our friendship just continued to grow, and I got to a point where I was opening myself up to him when it became evident that we were going to continue to have this relationship and see where it went. I was reluctantly letting my walls down because I wasn't trying to tell him about my past and everything that I had went through, but piece by piece it was coming out. We had this thing after a couple months where I would just say, "You ready?" Like when I had something to say, and it was just like, how do you even transition into what I had to say? It would just kind of be this random thing where I would just be like, "You ready?" And so, of course, he would automatically tense up. And so it was just all of the layers, just peeling back the layers. I guess in his mind, he had already decided that he wasn't going anywhere. It didn't take too long for us to decide that we were going to be together, that we were going to get married. And I knew it was God because of the timing of him coming back into my life. And then I realized that he was everything on my list that I had made earlier that year. And not just everything that was on my list, but he was everything that I needed that I didn't know I needed. So we got married in May of the following year. We eloped basically because we were still living in separate states. We were trying to work out all of the logistics to us being together with him having, his kids. Eventually I did move. I moved a couple weeks after we had gotten married. The day that I moved from Cincinnati and showed up at our condo, and the screen door was locked because the kids were there. And it was just like my heart sank. I knew it was going to be a challenge with the kid because I was just used to having my own space. Really, I've always thought in my mind the thing that I desired most was to be in love. And so in my head, I always thought that I would be with whoever I was with and just be in love. Just go through all of the romantic things that you see in movies or shows. That was in my head. And so I always felt that even with the kids thing, even like with me having kids, I was never one to feel like I always wanted to be a mom. I said day one, I was miserable when I showed up at our condo. And it didn't end there. Tim knew that I felt some type of way about the situation, just me showing up. Even when we were dating before we got married, he knew that there was this thing with the kids. We had talked about it, of course, but it was one of those things like I guess, the 80-20 rule. And we just kind of tucked it away as that was just the 20%, that you just have to take the good and the bad and the ugly and everything in between. So we went through our marriage and there were a lot of struggles, mainly related to the kids. But outside of that, we had a great friendship. We had a great relationship. Our spiritual life was good. It was just everything was just, we were so in sync. But then we would hit those bumps. One, we both never knew that the kids would end up staying with us full time. And that happened like really off and on throughout our marriage. After 7 years of marriage, it was a few very traumatic things that I went through. But I think it was in 21 or 22 where this experience happened with our oldest. And it just pushed me to the edge. And I was so low, couldn't do anything but go into the closet. I felt like I was so alone. And I started going into our closet and just crying. I would get through the day just trying to, sew and do the different things that, raise my frequency. At night, I would go into the closet and just release. And that's how it started, but it eventually moved into me calling out to God and just sitting there really most of the time quiet, going through all of the things in my mind of where I was, what do I need to do now, and just really releasing and letting go and surrendering. I got to a place where it was just like, okay, I have to surrender. I didn't know I had to surrender. I didn't know what I needed to surrender to. Several months later, I had already knew I wanted to write a book because Tim had said in the beginning of us dating that I would write a book. And I didn't want to write a book. I had no desire to write a book. But I just, tucked the thought away. But when I surrendered in 2022, I started writing in 23. Like it was, I don't know what pushed me, but it was just like, okay, let me just start writing. I think what triggered it is New Year's Eve 2022. So we were going into 23. And I was in a hotel room. Tim and I were getting a shut off and we wanted to write out our goals. And so I was just trying to really be intentional about what I wanted that year to look like. And I sat there in the room trying to think of what everything was. Like, what is this? The first chapter that I wrote was me sitting in the hotel room and just thinking, I need to surrender. I started writing about the hotel stay that New Year's Eve, and I would just write here and there periodically, whatever situation was going on at that time. And I kept praying and I kept surrendering, and things were just coming to me, really asking God, really listening for God to tell me what to put in the book. I did not know. I didn't know a lot of the things in the book I never intended to write about. Every time I would write or I would pray, he would reveal something to me to write about. I just continued to be led. That's the only reason that I put half of the things in this book. It was a process because some things I would hear that I had to put in the book, I would just go through this whole purging, this whole really break down sometimes because I was just like, oh, it was like I couldn't get out of it. And a lot of times it would just be confirmed. I would just start writing it. He would just give me the words of how to explain it. And as I was writing at one point, of course, I talked to my husband, Tim, about different things that I was struggling with. And Tim said one day that I should have my pastor, who is my brother, read it before I put it out, because he was just like, he trusted me. He trusted my relationship with God. But because I was in my brother's ministry and because of the potential fallout, he wanted me to basically give him a heads up. He even asked me, what if my brother didn't approve of it, if I would still publish it? And I didn't have an answer. I knew I was being obedient and I was being led because, like I said, it goes back to I never wanted to do this. Like, let's be clear. But the relationship that I was cultivating with God in the closet, in prayer, it was so revelatory, and just how he was just confirming things. And it was a struggle. I was growing spiritually and mentally just in the surrender and being able to do things that I didn't even know I wanted to do, that I didn't want to do. And being able to do those things, it just made me even more confident in the relationship. It's so layered in how I got here, seeing it from this perspective right now and how God orchestrated it. It was the surrender. It was just, okay, I can't control the situation. Lord, give me perspective to get through it. And so from 2003 to 2025, a lot had happened, but I had gotten to the point where it was like, okay, I need to put the book out now. My pastor, he had approved it long before the final book was put together. So much growth happened in that 2.5 years. The spiritual, the natural growth has been amazing. It has just blown me away. 7 years to surrender was that first 7 years of our marriage where it was just like I was kicking and screaming, really, trying to control what I felt like I could control. And of course, we don't have control over anything. And recognizing that is the first step. Recognizing that is the first step to surrender. Last year on my birthday, another traumatic event happened, and I started writing my second book. And I realized then that writing was actually how I was getting my healing. My book, this book, 7 Years to Surrender, is so layered. It's a book about surrender. It's all of my stories throughout life, explaining how I got here. It's about being a stepmom and what my experience was like. And then it was the exposure. That was the hardest smack in the face. The fact that I would have to expose some things, expose my secrets. That was the biggest surrender. Even in those moments where I was just like looking for a way out, it was like I couldn't. I had gotten to this place in my relationship with God where it was all a trust fall, a relationship of obedience with God. I didn't have a concept around. And so to have a relationship and to know that I put this book out, I was led by God. I was obedient to God's voice and Him leading me to put this book together, and just how it came out. Like, I love it. That's not ego. It's just, I know it was God. He put this book together. It was because of the obedience, and I trusted, and it was the surrender. Being on this other side of the book and seeing how things have shifted within me and also with the people in my life. It's been revelatory, but it's just been like confirmation that I needed to put this book out. A big piece of it was like I told my story, and like I said, I exposed myself, but I knew that exposing myself would allow others to expose themselves. God let me know that by me exposing myself, others couldn't expose me, because it's always like when you have secrets, there's always the possibility that your can expose you. And so he let me know that I would expose myself. And when you expose your thing, even if someone comes and they tell their part of the story, I still feel confident that I told my truth. Someone, they might want to tell their story and it might expose me. That is another surrender. But I still know that I needed to be obedient to put my story out, how I put it out. So I got a question from someone that asked me, even though I got a sense of freedom, did I consider how it would affect other people? I don't know exactly what other people they were referring to. The sense of freedom that I feel by putting it out has been the biggest reward, because I was sensitive to the identities of who I wrote about. I didn't have any bad intentions for what I wrote. It allowed me to see how uncomfortable people are with exposing secrets. It also made me think, like, how many people are holding on to secrets and why. I know I held on to my secrets because I didn't feel like they needed to be shared. A lot of it was embarrassment and shame. And so I did consider other people. I don't have a full understanding of what the person meant by did I consider other people. That just made me even more aware of, one, the things that we are hiding and that people may change when you tell your story and how your story affects other people. It also allowed me to see, because I talk about how I was obedient to God when I told my story in sharing this book. Another question that also came up is, how do you hear from God? It was almost like, are you sure that was God's voice that you were hearing? When people can basically question whether you're hearing from God. And so this journey, this journey called surrender has been enlightening. And I want people to talk. I want people to ask questions, ask me questions. I want people to read the book. People are afraid to tell their story. They don't want to take their mask off, but I don't regret stepping out here. It's, like I said, it's a sense of freedom, and whatever comes my way from here, it's just another surrender. I want to get a better perspective. I want to surrender. I want to stay free, and I don't want to hold on to anything that keeps me bound. It's uncomfortable to open yourself up, but at the same time, to hear the testimonies, to hear how it's delivered people, it just continues to confirm that my obedience was worth it. It's a level of vulnerability and being uncomfortable. It's the dichotomy that comes with feeling the freedom and being an avenue for someone else to tell their story. But on the other hand, it's the constant surrendering. It's the constant free falling. It's being uncomfortable and transparent, but that's what life is. And I can't control anyone's feelings about my story and vice versa. And so if I can be here to encourage someone else to get uncomfortable, to surrender, it's all worth it. My relationship with God just continues to grow, and just to know his voice. I didn't know that my relationship with God could be so good. Just all of the growth that has happened in this faith journey, in this surrender journey. I'm thankful for the journey. All right, I'll leave you here for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.